Hello, this is the Dazzling One, and this week's discussion is on the Great American Solar Eclipse and how it relates to biblical prophecy. Unless you've been living under a rock, you've probably heard about the upcoming solar eclipse. It's less than a week away, and it takes place on Monday, August 21st, 2017. It will last a total of 2 minutes and 40 seconds in each city that it crosses, and it's crossing a total of 10 different states, starting in Oregon and going to South Carolina, ending over the Atlantic. The news has been filled with everything from warnings of staring at the sun too long and the need to purchase a pair of solar eclipse sunglasses to protect your eyes, to the fact that many small towns are capitalizing on the mass tourism into the country and are putting on solar festivals partnering with NASA. A solar eclipse is a sight to see, and I'm very thankful to be living in one of the cities that is in the pathway of totality. Historically, solar eclipses have been viewed as an omen of angry deities, animals consuming the sun and the moon quarreling, or an angry sun. Modern science explains a solar eclipse as the sun temporarily blocking the sun. A solar eclipse often is referred to as the black sun, the sun darkening, the sun blackening, and we see it used as an omen on many forms of media, especially in terms of an apocalypse. And what's interesting about this solar eclipse is that the pathway that this particular eclipse is taking hasn't occurred since 1918, which was 99 years ago. And that same year, there was a flu pandemic. Some are pointing to this as another omen because in 1914, there was a solar eclipse that took place the same year in Europe that World War I broke out. And this will be the first solar eclipse that takes place only in the United States since the year 1776, the founding of the U.S. And there will be another solar eclipse that will take place in 7 years on April 9th, 2024. So with all of these interesting coincidences, some have felt that this is a warning or a sign to the United States of America and fits into biblical prophecy. For one thing, between the eclipse occurring in 2017 and in 2024, 7 years apart, it will make an X across the country, dividing the country 2 times. And what's fascinating about this fact is that the area that it crosses twice is where the Ohio River meets the Mississippi River, and it is where the New Madrid fault line sits. Also, the pathway that this first eclipse is taking will cross the Cascadia fault line near Yellowstone and past the New Madrid fault line. And some have suggested that this fits in with Revelation 16:17 through 20 when it describes the destruction of New Babylon by an earthquake splitting into 3 parts. And the reason they say this is because that when you look at where the Mississippi and the Ohio River meet and where these 2 eclipses will take place in the 7 years, it could easily split the country in 3. And the fact that it's 7 years apart to some is the length of the tribulation period. But Revelation 16:17 through 20 says, "The 7th angel poured out his bowl into the air, and out of the temple came a loud voice from the throne saying, 'It is done.' There came flashes of lightning, rumblings, peals of thunder, and a severe earthquake. No earthquake like it has ever occurred since mankind has been on earth. So tremendous was the quake. And the great city was divided into 3 parts, and the cities of the nations fell. And great Babylon came in remembrance before God to give unto her the cup of the wine of the fierceness of his wrath. And every island fled away, and the mountains were not found." What else is fascinating when you look at the possibility of an earthquake is that there was an earthquake that occurred known as the New Madrid quake between the years 1811 and 1812. It was so powerful that it shook church bells several states away, and it temporarily reversed the flow of the Mississippi River. What also leads some to believe that this is a sign to America is that it mirrors what happened in the time of Jonah. And some may say, why look at Jonah? Well, when Yeshua was speaking to the Pharisees in Matthew 16:4, he said, "A wicked and adulterous generation looks for a sign, but none will be given it except the sign of Jonah." Jesus then left them and went away. So you may ask, what was the sign of Jonah? Well, for one thing, when he was crucified, there was darkness and there was an earthquake. And in Matthew 27:42 through 54, it says, He saved others, himself he cannot save. If he be the King of Israel, let him now come down from the cross. And will he believe him? He trusted in God, let him deliver him now, if he will have him. For he said, I am the Son of God. The thieves also, which were crucified with him, cast the same in his teeth. Now from the 6th hour there was darkness over all the land until the 9th hour. And about the 9th hour Jesus cried with a loud voice, saying, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? Some of them that stood there, when they heard that, said, this man calleth for Elias. And straightway one of them ran, and took a sponge, and filled it with vinegar, and put it in the reed, and gave him to drink. The rest said, let be, let us see whether Elias will come to save him. Jesus, when he had cried again with a loud voice, yielded up the ghost. And behold, the veil of the temple was rent in twain from the top to the bottom, and the earth did quake, and the rocks rent. And the graves were opened, and many bodies of the saints which slept arose, and came out of the graves after his resurrection, and went into the holy city, and appeared unto many. Now, when the centurion and they that were with him, watching Jesus, saw the earthquake, and those things that were done, they feared greatly, saying, truly this was the Son of God. So some may say, well, that's what he was talking about when he said a wicked generation, referring to the Pharisees, and the sign that they would get like that at the time of Jonah was what happened when Yeshua was crucified. However, if you read on in scripture, you'll often find that the last generation is referred to as a wicked generation as well. And what's fascinating about this is that historians have traced back a solar eclipse that took place on June 15th, 763 BC, known as the Assyrian eclipse in Nineveh prior to Jonah's arrival, which made them more receptive to his message. And Nineveh only had 40 days to repent. And in Jonah 3:4 it says, and Jonah began to enter into the city, a day's journey, and he cried and said, yet 40 days, and Nineveh shall be overthrown. So you may ask, what is 40 days from August 21st? Well, that lands on Friday, September 29th, 2017, which is the start of the Day of Atonement, or Yom Kippur. But if that's not crazy enough, 33 days after it is the infamous September 23rd. And I know most people get tired of hearing this date. I get tired of hearing this date. We've heard people talking about it for the last 2 to 3 years with all of the hysteria over the rapture that was supposed to have occurred 2 years ago, right? Well, one of the reasons why I believe that the 23rd continues to come up is because simply it's the number 23, which is linked to discordia in the occult or chaos. But in this case, what I found interesting was that the 23rd of September this year is after Rosh Hashanah, which is the Jewish New Year's. And on that day, the stars are going to align in a way that matches Revelation 12:1. And Revelation 12:1 says, and there appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun and the moon under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars. And the moon will be under the Virgo constellation, and Virgo is in the shape of a woman. The sun will be at her shoulders, and there will be 12 stars in Leo, and Leo is in the shape of a lion. And because Venus, Mars, and Jupiter are aligning above her head, that makes 12 stars. So this is all food for thought. I'm not making any predictions. I'm not date setting. All I'm pointing out is what many have pointed out before me, but I find it very interesting. And if there were to be something that happens, I just want to remind you to remember to walk the walk, don't just talk it, and to make sure that you have established a relationship with Christ. And also, oddly enough, South Carolina's emergency management warned its residents of lizard man sightings, and they even tweeted out where the lizard men have been spotted in the past, along with an overlay of the path of the solar eclipse. And this is fascinating because they've had historical sightings of lizard men, and if you know anything about lizard men, I mean, this is what conspiracy theories are built on. No, but in reality, we often hear about the reptilians or hollow earth. The last thing is that with current events, there was a partial lunar eclipse that took place in the eastern hemisphere on August 7th, 2017. What's interesting is that very same day, we saw the rhetoric between the US and North Korea ramped up with Trump's fire and fury comment and Kim Jong-un's response to him. And while they're saying that nothing probably will result from it, it's all talk, to sleep easy, I would still keep my eyes open. And then, a few days later, there was the event in Charlottesville where tensions are high. It's like a nation divided, similar to the pathway of the eclipse splitting the nation. And it's no coincidence that this is all over a Civil War monument. But one thing that they like to do is whenever there's something going on geopolitically, they'll distract us with something domestic or vice versa. And it's easy for the media to do. Look how they made Ebola disappear overnight, but that's all we heard day in and day out. So keep your eyes open. And also, I want to know what you guys think about this solar eclipse. Is it just more hysteria, or do you think there's some legitimacy to all of these coincidences that seem to be aligning? I hope you have a wonderful week. Take care, and God bless.